Well, good afternoon, race fans. We've finally made it here to another episode of In the Huddle. Um, Before we get, well, just to kick this whole thing off, today's episode of In the Huddle with Brent Williams is brought to you by Mark Cruz and family. Over the years, Mark has supported Patriots alumni with mentoring and advice, and along with his family, has participated in all of our events and programs. And Spyglass MTG, your go-to partner for Microsoft technology solutions. Let's bring in my pal, my teammate, my guy, Brent Williams. Brent, thanks for joining us today. We had a little bit of a technical issue getting you on, but I think all things are solved. Thanks for joining us.
Well, thank you for having me, Pete. I appreciate getting on. And you would think with almost a year of these Zoom meetings, we'd have all these glitches worked out. But I'm excited to be on. I've got a chance to see some of the episodes, and it's been really cool to kind of go back down memory lane with a lot of former teammates and friends and so forth. So I'm excited to be on the guest list today. So thank you.
No question. It's been equally fun for me too, of picking up the phone and getting reconnected to a lot of guys. If you've seen, we started with the 70s era, with Tony McGee and Ray Hamilton, some legends probably to you on the defensive side of the ball and the defensive line.
Right.
Of course, we had to have Nelly and his pal Zabel join us together. But it's been a lot of fun just catching up. Mike Haynes, Stanley Morgan, Ray Claiborne, Sam Cunningham, of course, John Hanna, Steve Grogan, to get all of this stuff going. Now we're focusing on the 80s and have had a lot of fun with all that too. Let's start with you. I mean, from Flint, Michigan to Foxborough with a bit of a stay over at the University of Toledo, and talk about your journey to Foxborough.
You know what? My journey to Foxborough started being as a seventh round pick out of the University of Toledo. As you said, I grew up in Flint, Michigan. Flint has an incredibly proud athletic heritage. In fact, 3 of my Pop Warner teammates all played in the National Football League. All of us played for 10 or more years. Carl Banks with the Giants, part of their Super Bowl championship teams, was a couple years older than me. Lonnie Young was a year older than me, and then myself. But the thing that was incredible that we always talked about whenever we get a chance to talk about Flint and the history of athletics there, the 3 of us made it to the National Football League, and none of us were ever the MVP on any of those teams that we played on in the Pop Warner League. So there was so much more talent that was out there, that we were proud to be a part of that heritage and proud to be, from the city of Flint. And I kind of took that to Toledo, and then that same kind of, chip or attitude to the New England Patriots as a 7th round pick in 1986. So really cool.
Well, let's talk about, before we move off of that subject, because that's kind of intriguing in that at a Pop Warner age, a middle school age, kids, some kids develop much faster than others. Some kids are a little more mature physically than others, and others take a while to get all caught up with things. And it seems to me that a lot of attention's drawn to kids that don't need the attention. The kid that can throw the ball 60 yards gets all the coaching, gets all the attention, when Johnny's sitting over there and can't, button his chin strap properly. And so the challenge becomes is how do you get those kids that are a little more underdeveloped than some of their peers? How do you get them up equal to that? You just mentioned the fact that the 3 of you had really nothing to do with MVPs or any type of accolades. You just went through middle school and Pop Warner and did your business. But so kind of talk about that whole dynamic.
You know what? In a city like Flint, it's a tough city. There's a lot of distractions. There's a lot of things that can pull you in the wrong direction. And all the 3 of us really had kind of, either strong parents, strong family backgrounds that really kind of kept you in line. And that was a big part of the reason we were able to continue to just move forward and develop. And a lot of what you said is absolutely true. I see it today in my business and in one of my businesses is that we identify. I run a youth football camp around the country, and we see some of the kids that are incredibly gifted at a very early age. But we also see kids who, like you said, don't have the coordination yet. They're really long. They're clumsy. My oldest son was that kid. I mean, you were instrumental in kind of helping him kind of get on the map through the Nike camps way back when you used to work there. But there was a point when he was in 7th or 8th grade where he was big, gangly, clumsy. We would joke. He would go to basketball games. He would jump. I remember him landing on his knees because he forgot to put his feet down. And it was just like that. But this kid ends up being a 3rd round draft pick for the Houston Texans. That is, it's just so much of what we do from our camps is trying to identify those unique athletes. And I think that the 3 of us were kind of those athletes. We had size, but the coordination may not have been there. And if the coordination isn't there, then the speed isn't always there. So it's always putting all those pieces together. And over time and maturity and hard work and staying out of trouble, it kind of worked out for us all.
Well, I'm hoping kids or people that influence kids are listening in on this whole thing and are drawing some conclusions about maybe how they would approach their own children or the children that they coach. That whole thing. The really challenge is the kids that need coaching. Make sure you coach it.
Absolutely.
The kids that already look like they've got it down pat.
Right.
They need some direction. But the real challenge is getting those kids involved early so that they don't get discouraged and walk
Correct.
off the field because they're slow, gangly, and uncoordinated yet.
Absolutely. And you know what the thing is in anything, you've been around the game a long time. I read Michael Jordan's book, one of Michael Jordan's early books, or a book that was written about him. And he talked about getting kids to appreciate or love the game. And if they love the game, they'll do all of the things that are necessary that you don't necessarily like, the extra running, the extra lifting, and all of those different things. But if you can encourage those kids and get them to appreciate and love the game, then the rest gives them a chance to be, next level players or next level players, whatever that may be, whatever may be in line for them. But the love of the game is critical. And I see kids, like you said, they get discouraged at an early age because coach isn't paying attention to me. I'm not so coordinated. I'm not so good. I can't catch. I can't run. And all of a sudden you've got some 6'6", 300-pound kid that shows up at the high school field that's never played it down, that turns into, the diamond in the rough that everybody wants to get their hands on.
And not every kid's going to play in the NFL. That's a long stretch and big odds to make it happen. But the more they can get out of each stage of their career, whether it's to Pop Warner to high school to, if they're fortunate enough to go to a Division 1, 2, or 3 school and extend their careers that way. But the lessons that they learn on the field are so much more important than whether or not they play professional football. If they can show the hard work, dedication, commitment, and discipline required to be on a football team, they'll be successful in just about anything they do.
Absolutely. There's so many, as you know, there's so many life lessons that we've learned on the football field. There's so many life lessons, whether it be life lessons when you were in Pop Warner, or life lessons when you were in high school, or life lessons when you were in college, or even in the pros, that are applicable to business. They're applicable to every facet of life. Parenting, all of those things are critical. And I just love to see kids be a part of the sport. Sports in general, but obviously football was the vehicle that I was able to use to get from where I was in Flint to the NFL.
Yeah, and your trip to Foxborough started, like you say, in 1986, in that I think that was a May draft back then. But anyway, I could be wrong. But regardless,
it's April, May. But I do know this: they did the draft in one day back then, and there was no 3 days.
No.
And I know my coach came in really, really late at night. So there was 12 rounds at the time, but I remember getting a call sometime around, a little after midnight, and them saying, the New England Patriots have just drafted you, and Coach Raymond Berry wants to speak to you. And I was just like, well, one, where the heck is New England? That was the first thing. And two, just trying to get a feel for, what my life was going to be like, because you guys had just played the Bears in the Super Bowl, and my mother, was a big part of obviously the major part of my life that kind of got me in the right direction and kept me in the right direction. But I just remember her saying, I want you to go somewhere warm, or I want you to go somewhere close. And so I remember just when I looked at her and I told her on the phone, I said, I'm going somewhere cold and I'm going somewhere far. So that was the only thing that came to mind when that phone rang and they said New England was on the other end of it.
Yeah, no, that's fascinating, especially the fact that in '85, like you say, we had just stubbed our toe in that Super Bowl, but our amazing journey to get there really was quite amazing.
Absolutely.
And so you had to feel like, I bet you started, well, back then you couldn't do Google searches on who the defensive line coach or the linemen were at the time.
You just showed up.
You showed up. But a 7th round draft pick, and to have the kind of career that you went on to have, Brent, that's a great testimony to you to make that work. So you had to feel like kind of odd man out when you first showed up again.
Yeah. You know what? It was, and I had a kind of a flashback. I was telling the story to my son a couple days ago when I learned that Willie Scott passed.
Yeah.
And Willie was actually the first Patriot I met, and the reason I met Willie is that our flights arrived in Providence at the same time, and in my mind, just the insecure, not knowing anything that was going on. Willie had just gotten traded from Kansas City to us. We get off the plane around the same time. We're at the luggage rack and waiting on our things to come in. In my mind, I'm thinking, this guy's another defensive end because they don't think that I'm going to be very good. And that's because he was a big tight end. So I just remember that being kind of my first, introduction to the NFL was meeting Willie and sadly hearing that he passed away this week,
right.
It just kind of brought back those memories.
Right. Well, so you drop into Foxborough, and we were pretty solid on defense and defensively. There was a good mix of, and we've used this as kind of a theme through all of this, but a great mix of young players, in your rookie year coming in, and some veterans that have been around for a while and had quite a bit of experience.
I learned one of the things I just thought the world of Coach Berry as far as a head coach. Eddie Kayette was my defensive line coach along with Ray Hamilton, and the pace in which they kind of helped me develop, I thought was really. I don't know if it was on purpose or it just fell into that way, but throughout the preseason, there were points in which I was calling my agent and telling him that Saskatchewan didn't sound too bad. I could probably play in Canada. And then there was a time when I felt like towards the end of the preseason, I'm starting in as a rookie, and I just remember having conversations with those guys, and I thought Coach Berry did an incredible job of mixing the young players and putting them around veterans. And I saw that you guys, you talked to, or you're scheduled to talk to Ronnie Lepetta at some point that's coming up down the road. Ronnie was my roommate my rookie year. So Ronnie was a veteran. And I learned so much from Ronnie as a corner, about just preparing for games off the field, the mental side of it. And I joke with him all the time, to this day, my kids, they learn lessons from Ronnie that they had no idea that they were from Ronnie, that I learned through him. Right. And one of those lessons was when we went to Miami to play when we played in the Heat, Ronnie would turn the heat on in the room, and it would be a hot room the entire night, and we would be sweating. And I'm sure this is not the way you're supposed to do things, but that's the way Ronnie wanted us to do it. When we played in Buffalo and it was freezing cold, we had the air on in the room, so you were cold the entire night. So there was no body shock when you went out there on the field the next day, and that's the way Ronnie operated. But it helped me kind of get myself into a mindset to go play. And when Ronnie said the TV was going off at 8:30, right after meetings, the TV went off and we went to sleep, and I began to get programmed that way. And I think that was a big reason that I was able to play so long, because we had great veterans that instilled great traits in the young players to help them get through. You know, you weren't hanging out until midnight talking to your girlfriend on the phone or what have you. You were focused and you were getting ready to play the game. And I think that's why we had some really early successes.
You know, and I really hope that still carries on, that tradition still carries on, the passing of the torch or whatever you want to call it. When I was a rookie, I landed in Foxborough in 1976, and there was a guy that they had just traded to Cleveland for, Bob McKay, who played on a national championship team at the University of Texas, the 69 championship team at Texas. He was a 7-year veteran at Cleveland. They traded for him because we needed some help at tackle. And he took me under his wings. And like Ronnie did with you, he taught me what it meant to be a pro. And I don't mean about X's and O's and blocking and tackling. I mean, here's how you act on the road. Here's you tip the visiting locker room attendant. And by the way, let's go meet him. You know, just how to handle yourself as a professional, how to get ready for those kind of, you know, for the events that you're looking forward to. And Ronnie must have been a huge influence with you, and so was Bob McKay with me. I'm just hoping that tradition continues, that young players coming in get an opportunity to, you know, to sit with some of the older players and understand what it means to the game. I'm afraid though that might have gone away with free agency. You know that
it is. It's probably a little more challenging to kind of get that same chemistry. You know, the torch being passed consistently from group to group. But I think, you know, the successful programs, they find a way to do it.
Yeah.
And I have no doubt that the guys that were in the locker room this past year, after having a ton of success, going through some struggles, now will come back with, you know, a different mindset and a different attitude, you know, going forward. So I'm looking forward to seeing how those guys, how they kind of, you know, rally the troops and get back in the winning ways.
Yeah, no, it is going to be a challenge for our Patriot team to try to get back to that. I'm just, you know, it was such a great 20-year run, you know, with TB12, and then to watch him do what he did last Sunday too is you know, if the Patriots weren't going to win another Super Bowl, that's as close as we got to doing it, watching him step on the field once again and making it happen. So.
You know what? It was really cool. It's special to watch him continue to play. I have a different relationship with TB12 and the organization, not necessarily Tom. Tom was very instrumental or his foundation and TB12 Sports in helping our camp series as it relates to developing quarterbacks. So, you know, it's hard for me not to root for him and watch him go somewhere else. It was tough to see him leave, but the person that he is, the organization that he has, and the people around him, they've been very helpful to our camp series, and so it was great to see him to go out with to go out and get another win. Yeah. So it was pretty cool.
Well, tell us about it. I mean, we could talk, you know, for the next 20 minutes if you want to about the career you had, but you played what, 7 or 8 years with the Patriots, and
I played eight years here in New England. I played 2 in Seattle, and then finished my last year in New York with the Jets. So
not with the Jets.
I think it was. I don't know if it was you who said it, but I know that I heard Nelly say it. You play as long as you can, and you add 2 more. And so I played as long as I could. And the Jets was my add 2 more, but so I added 1 more out of that year. So
there you go.
I was able to get through it.
Yeah, no, and that, you know, you had a great career with the Patriots. it just seemed that 86 we went to the playoffs, and
Right.
I'll never forget coming out of that locker room in Denver at halftime
Hmm.
with a 20-7 lead, and
Yep.
watch that just piddle away, and
Yep.
the fortunes of Elway getting going and making it happen. But I really thought we could run the ball down their throats and maintain the rest of the
Yep.
thing and advance in the playoffs. It just wasn't so. And it
I
just
thought so too. And I think the thing that was challenging for me, so you had gone to the playoffs the year before, and gone through the Super Bowl run, and then the next year we get to the playoffs. So that's my rookie year, and I'm just thinking, man, we won the division. It's pretty, this isn't that hard. We're going to be in the playoffs for the rest of my career. And so we win the division. We get the first round bye. We get to the second game in the divisional round, and I'm sitting there saying, this is great. This is going to be how it is for the rest of my career. That's my only playoff game.
Right.
And so, things that we take for granted very early in your career, you see how hard it was to get back to, that level of play. And then with all the changes and turmoil and all those things, it just made it that much more difficult.
Yeah, step us through that whole thing. I mean, it started after the '88 season, '89. That the Raymond Berry
Right.
steps down, and it just seemed like it was coach after coach for the next 3 or 4 years.
It was, and I think that was one of the things that I don't that when in looking back, I think one of the challenges that was really hard to go through was the challenge from going from Raymond Berry style to the Rod Rush year to the Dick McPherson years to the Bill Parcells year, and we literally had those 4 head coaches in a 5-year span. And that was, or 6-year span. That was probably the most challenging points of my career, just because there was always a difference in how they were operating and how, the system that we were going to run. When we were under Dick McPherson, he wanted all the linemen light because we ran a lot of slants and games and stunts. And that's the way they played in Denver, because that was the staff that they brought over from a defensive standpoint. And then we go to the Parcells year, where he wanted you big and bulked up so we could 2-gap. And it was just to kind of get some continuity throughout that process was really, really challenging for players who have been there from the beginning under Coach Berry. So that was probably one of the more challenging points in my career, that window. But even going through those, you make great friends. I had some great teammates playing alongside Andre, and Donnie Blackman and Nelly and those guys in that era really, those guys carried me. Garen Veras was a defensive end that was just a year ahead of me. And then we had Toby Williams as another defensive lineman. And so our front, and obviously Kenny Sims was a part of that group as well. And I think our front, we were pretty good. And it just really mattered. It just depended on, what system that we were going to be put in and how those talents were going to be used. So it was as challenging as those years were, those dark years. I think it was fun. So I tell people all the time, I was the bridge between that first playoff game that I played in 2 years after I left. They went back to the playoffs, and then they went to the Super Bowl. So if you want to blame anybody, I'll take the heat.
I'm not sure anybody's looking to blame things on anybody, but I always kidded. Fred Smerlis is a dear friend of mine, and it's
Absolutely.
we were
Yep.
in competition against each other for 10 years, twice a year when he was with Buffalo, and boy, there were some real battles. As much as we owned Buffalo, I mean it
Yep.
was I looked forward to that game because I knew it was just going to be a tough 2-gap
Absolutely.
nose guard.